r/NuclearRevenge. First story. Unjustly fire me. Let me make you go bankrupt real quick. I was told to post this here, so here we go. This happened a few years ago and still makes me giggle with glee to this day. I'm a 34 years old F who has always been a bit of a tomboy. I like cars, sports, and reptiles. When I was 25 I wanted a career change and finally follow my dream of working in an auto repair shop as a painter, like my father always did. To start my education I needed to already have a job at an auto repair shop as an intern. So I searched and called a lot of companies to see if they had spots. There were literally several companies that laughed at me because there's no place for a woman on the work floor. Disheartened, I tried one final company who said he'd take a chance with me. I was thrilled. I was promised lots of opportunities to learn and a steady job after graduation. I started a week later and the first 2 weeks were awesome. I learned a lot and was promised even more opportunities. He promised I would have 2 to 3 hours a week of private time with the resident painter for practice. Soon after though it went downhill. The owner had bid on a contract with a large city in our country to restore underground containers. I had to sand them down, put sealant on the edges, and prepare them for painting. Tedious work, but I did it diligently. The promised practice time never happened. After a while, all I did, day in day out, 8 hours a day was sand down underground containers. By then end of the day my hands and wrists were numb from the vibrations. This BTW is illegal. You're not allowed to sand with a pneumatic sanding machine for more than 4 hours a day in my country, as it causes severe wrist and hand issues. After several months the contract with the city ended, and I hoped my promised practice time would come. But no, it didn't. I was given jobs that had nothing to do with my education. I was told to do jobs that a contractor should do, like put rubber in front of the windows, repair the sliding doors, repair walls and other small things. Basically nothing to do with my desire to become a painter. After 6 months of doing literally nothing that I could count to my education, my boss called me into his office. He told me he was fed up with my attitude. He made a mistake hiring me. I was fired on the spot. I was heartbroken and cried the whole way home. I didn't get it. I put 110% into my job, working hard, always on time, staying late if needed and never complained. I didn't understand what happened and was pretty down for a while. However, several days later I found out I was pregnant, which helped me get over my downness. We had been trying for over a year, so we were ecstatic. When the time came that my final paycheck should come in, nothing happened. A week after it normally came in, I called, but was told to not complain, and it would be transferred shortly. 2 weeks later, still nothing. Called again and got a very irate boss on the line, cussing at me and calling me things I will not repeat here. I was fed up and contacted my lawyer. Here comes the revenge part. Mwahaha. In my country, there's apparently a few laws that my boss broke without me even knowing about them. First, you're not allowed to fire somebody without reasonable cause. You need to document bad behavior and give the employee a write-up. After 2 write-ups you're allowed to terminate. My boss never did this. Unlawful termination can end in a fine, and the employee has a right to get as many monthly pays as the employment contract would have continued if the employee wasn't terminated, which would mean I had a right to another 6 months of pay. Second, you must pay the final paycheck within a week of termination. We were now going on week 4. After the first week, an employee is entitled to compensation of up to €100 per day of not receiving their paycheck, meaning I was now entitled to at least €2,100 extra pay. My lawyer wrote up a letter to my boss stating we would be pursuing my legal rights. He didn't respond. A week later we sent another letter, increasing the compensation for late payment as we went. After a month of my lawyer not getting any response, suddenly I received my pay. No compensation, nothing, just basic pay. My lawyer recommended to go to small claims court, and so we did. Mind you, it takes about 3 months before you can appear before court. He didn't even show up in court, but sent a statement through his lawyer saying how I was a horrible employee, blah blah blah. However, he had no proof whatsoever, but I did. I had my performance reports from 1 month into employment and 4 months into employment, and they were stellar. The judge saw right through my boss's bullshit and awarded me -6 months of pay, 12,000 euros, -4 months of late payment compensation. This is because he didn't pay the full amount my lawyer requested, as was my legal right. About 12,000 euros. Legal fees, now about 3,000 euros. I was paid the same week. He was then also charged with a fine for violating employment laws. He had to pay 50k. This resulted in the Employment Bureau. This agency makes sure companies comply with employment laws etc. Investigating the company. They discovered the building I worked at was unsafe. The foundation was unstable. Walls were crumbling and tilting. He was told to make repairs or they would close him down within a month. By accident they discovered he was also cheating on his taxes. So the tax agency got involved. He got charged with embezzlement and tax evasion for both his companies. He had to pay back all taxes he evaded, plus a 100% fine, coming to a staggering 250k over several years. He didn't have that kind of money, and after struggling for about 2 months, which resulted in him not paying his other employees, he went belly up. Both businesses shut down, and the building I worked at even got demolished 7 years later. It's still an empty plot, and if I ever feel put down by somebody, I take a short drive to that place. And it reminds me, people will sometimes get what they deserve. Edit. Wow, the response to this has shocked me, and I wanted to answer some common questions. I'm from the Netherlands, and yes, I'm using $ in the name eyes. Mostly because I wanted to make this post easier to read for everybody. I'll not use them in the future as it seems to confuse some people. Sorry about that. Yes, my colleagues lost their jobs too, though they did encourage me to seek justice. They too were wronged by him. First off, he let them work in an unsafe environment, which he knew was unsafe. And after I left he asked his employees to work for free as he had financial issues which were later proven to be untrue. At that point anyway lol. Most didn't accept this and left the company. The ones who stayed did lose their job when he went belly up. I kept in contact with most of them. 2 went into early retirement and are happily enjoying it. Others have moved on and found better jobs within the week. I did feel guilty at first, but the end result, including my colleagues finding better employment, made it worth it. Yes, I did find another painting job for about 3 years, after which I got ill, and I'm now waiting on a kidney transplant / also in a wheelchair. Genetics, not environmental. Kid is doing fine, he's 7 now. The sweet age of them being awesome and slightly annoying all at the same time, haha. And finally a shout out to my favorite YouTuber / his videos inspired me to actually sit down and write this all down. Second story. Best college guest speaker ever. Misery loves history. When finishing up my degree in criminal justice we had to learn about how the justice system works and how sometimes it doesn't. For about 2 weeks we studied a case from the early 90s of a woman that had killed her husband. Because the case is public record and a very interesting read, look up Betty Freeburg 1993. The setting was small town Iowa and the husband was a town drunk. Everyone in town knew him for a drunk, a brawler, a womanizer and overall just a bad person. His wife was the stay-at-home mom as she wasn't allowed to work or leave the house aside from get groceries. He would go home, beat her and violate her sexuality and the cycle would go on and the whole town knew. Neighbors were a quarter-mile down the road, but still would call the police when they heard noises. It was well documented, and because he was never a threat to their daughter the police did nothing aside from take him to jail like a revolving door. Each time he got out he'd beat her up again. Their daughter was away at college, but came home for Thanksgiving. While the father was at work the daughter told the mother that her father had violated her sexuality, and that she had even had an abortion because of it. This was the breaking point for the mother. She got her revenge 100-fold. When daughter went back to school after the holidays and husband came home she killed him with his gun at the kitchen table. The table is important because it was a big farm table used for chopping up deer and other livestock. Doing the butchering was her job, and she was good at it. If I could find the case report it has pictures of the table and clear marks of chopping. She chopped up her husband and scattered his body over neighboring farms, fed what she could to her livestock and cleaned up. Months went by and winter came and left. Police investigating his disappearance even questioned her while sitting at the table drinking coffee. She explained the marks on the table by explaining that she butchered her own meat and showed the officers her deep freeze. The investigation went on for months until finally a neighbor's dog brought back a body part. They identified it as belonging to him, and she was arrested on the spot. She pleaded not guilty and refused any offers. It went to trial and 12 of her peers judged her not guilty due to extenuating circumstances. She confessed to the crime, explained why she did it, and how, and that she had no real choice because no one was going to help her. The farm was hers, and she refused to give it up as it had been her family's home. She was let go entirely for the murder charge. The next week we had Betty as a speaker to the class to discuss the case, and she was awesome. At the time she ironically sold dismemberment insurance for a flack. Betty, if you ever read this, know you're seen as a figurehead for battered women and you pulled off the best revenge I have ever been able to study. Third story. Methanol vodka. This is a story about someone my parents knew in the Soviet Union. First, some context. In Russia, people have a main home and a secondary home for the summer, called a dacha. Now when you lived in your main home, 99% of the time people broke into the dacha and vandalized or stole things. Okay, the story. This guy was tired of people breaking in, and he worked in a government chemical facility. So on the last day of summer, he brought to his dacha some methanol and poured it in some empty vodka bottles. Then he left the bottles on the table. When he came back next summer, he returned to 3 corpses. Here's the revenge part. Generally this is first/second degree murder, but since they broke in and drank it, he's not liable. It's the same thing to breaking into someone's home and stabbing yourself with a kitchen knife. So he walked away free.